Giannis and his agent are having discussions about his future here in Milwaukee.
So one source telling ESPN the writing is on the wall on an
Giannis Antetokounmpo just dropped a major career announcement, and it's already sending shockwaves through the league. What he revealed has sparked fresh trade rumors, raised real questions about Milwaukee's future, and put the entire NBA on alert. Let's break down everything. Talks in motion. Bucks and Giannis evaluate the future. In early December 2025, credible sources reported that Giannis Antetokounmpo and his agent Alex Saratzis have initiated formal talks with Milwaukee Bucks management to discuss whether Giannis should remain in Milwaukee or consider a move elsewhere. The issue at hand isn't a casual rumor, but a structured evaluation, a best-fit conversation reportedly aimed at concluding in the coming weeks.
Giannis Antetokounmpo made one thing clear at Media Day before the season. He said, "I want to be on a team that allows me and gives me a chance to win a championship."
The timing adds weight to these discussions. The Bucks have been underperforming. Entering the 2025-26 season, expectations were high after off-season moves, but the team has struggled to deliver. For Giannis, who remains in the prime of his career, the critical question seems to be, can this roster realistically contend? According to insiders, that question is central to what's driving the talks. This isn't Giannis quietly weighing offers behind the scenes. It's a transparent, admitted evaluation of his options. In fact, when the season began, the plan reportedly was that he'd give the Bucks about 25 games to prove they're championship ready, then decide. For the broader NBA landscape, this development signals that one of the league's premier stars might soon hit the open market. Trade deadline watchers, front offices, and fans are now bracing for the possibility that Giannis could become available, a move that could reshape Eastern Conference dynamics. Honest words, Giannis's public balance between hope and realism. Giannis hasn't shied away from being straightforward about his mindset. In a September 2025 interview with Greek media, he said plainly, "I hope it never happens, but I'm expecting it to." By that, he meant he's mentally prepared for the possibility that the Bucks may trade him, even if he wishes they don't.
Out of the NBA, where two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo and his agent are meeting with the Bucks front office to discuss his future in Milwaukee. That is according to multiple reports. The Greek Freak is in his first season of a 3-year, $186 million extension, but could be on his way out of Milwaukee via a trade.
That comment reflects his dual view: loyalty to Milwaukee's legacy on one hand and practical realism on the other. He pointed out that organizational leadership has changed since the 2021 championship. The owners, the presidents now, they're not the same as when we won. He added that a franchise must always do what's best for itself, even if that means parting ways. For context, this attitude marks a shift from earlier in 2025, when Giannis had publicly said he wouldn't ask for a trade, adding that the team would have to kick me out if they wanted him gone. But as season losses piled up and success remained elusive, his stance evolved. Now he acknowledges that even his long-term loyalty has limits if competitive prospects decline. This combination of hope and realism resonates with many players nearing their prime's latter stage, a desire to chase championships paired with a pragmatic understanding that careers are finite. For Giannis, the calculus seems clear. Personal legacy and fewer what-ifs matter more than just staying put. Publicly voicing this nuanced position accomplishes two things. It keeps pressure on both himself and the franchise, while also signaling to potential suitors that he's open to change. It's not a demand, but a clear and measured signal that he's no longer betting on hope alone. Digital cleanup. What a social media purge says, loudly. On December 2nd, 2025, fans and media noticed that Giannis had scrubbed virtually all references to the Bucks from his social media accounts, Instagram and X, leaving only a few historic posts, notably from the 2021 championship. In a digital-first era where athletes and teams often use social media to shape narratives, this silence speaks volumes.
It seems like there's a lot to get through for him to actually land in New York.
Yeah, another hurdle that Giannis is going through individually. He did suffer a calf strain in their game against the Pistons. Tonight, Doc Rivers saying that he believes that he has avoided an Achilles injury. So very great news on the Giannis front as far as his physical health is concerned.
Deleting posts might appear trivial, but in the context of trade speculation and public sentiment, it becomes symbolic, a subtle statement of detachment. For many observers, this cleanup looked less like an aesthetic rebrand and more like a prelude to change, a sign that Giannis is gradually distancing himself, at least publicly, from the Bucks' identity. Coupled with confirmed talks between him, his agent, and the Bucks front office about his future, the social media purge deepens suspicion. It suggests that Giannis is not just weighing options privately, he may be mentally preparing for a different chapter. For fans and the organization, the purge may be easier to rationalize than a direct statement like, "I'm leaving." It allows Giannis to keep public relations smooth, avoid overt drama, yet it still communicates ambiguity. In the high-stakes world of NBA trades, ambiguity can be potent. It gives front offices flexibility. It keeps rival teams alert, and it preserves Giannis's leverage. In short, the digital silence is a far more strategic and telling move than many realize. It might not confirm a trade, but it strongly signals that he's preparing for all possibilities. Elite output amid instability, performance versus team reality. Statistically, Giannis continues to perform at an elite level. According to recent reporting, he is averaging 30.6 points, 10.7 rebounds, and 6.4 assists per game this season, with shooting efficiency that ranks among the best of his career. For a 13-year veteran in his early 30s, that kind of production maintains his status as one of the premier players in the league.
Doc, I guess just to start, do you have an update on Giannis?
Not yet. He's doing MRI right now, so we'll know more hopefully by the end of the night.
Yet in stark contrast, the Bucks, built around him, are not matching that level of success. Their record this season has been disappointing, prompting serious questions about their capacity to contend in a tough Eastern Conference. This divergence, dominant individual performance versus underwhelming team results, crystallizes the dilemma. From a career and legacy standpoint, Giannis must weigh, is being a top performer enough if the supporting cast and organizational structure aren't facilitating championship contention? For many, championships define greatness more than stats alone. Furthermore, league insiders suggest that as long as Giannis remains productive, he will remain a high-value trade asset for teams seeking a transformative impact. For rival contenders, acquiring a star like Giannis, who can still deliver historically elite numbers, could shift the balance of power, potentially turning mid-tier teams into immediate title threats. Thus, the current combination of his elite production and the Bucks' instability increases the urgency and feasibility of a trade. For Giannis, staying puts him in the position of carrying a struggling franchise. Leaving could plug him into a roster built for contention. The question becomes less about loyalty and more about timing, fit, and maximizing the closing stretch of his prime. Potential homes, where Giannis could land. A key component of the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade conversation revolves around which franchises are realistically positioned to pursue the two-time MVP should he become available. Recent reporting indicates that while the New York Knicks held an exclusive negotiating window during the offseason, that arrangement won't apply moving forward. Sources noted Giannis was open to the Knicks as a potential destination, underscoring his desire to compete for championships.
Rumors, there was a lot of chatter about Giannis and the Knicks over the summer. What do you make of that potential pairing with Giannis in New York?
One of the things, as fans got to understand when we have all of these wild theories about potential trades, what is Milwaukee going to get back in a trade?
Beyond New York, analysts list a wide range of teams as potential suitors, with some consensus forming around a handful of organizations. For instance, the San Antonio Spurs emerge repeatedly. Pairing Giannis with Victor Wembanyama and other young talent presents a compelling proposition for Milwaukee in terms of draft capital and future building blocks. This east-to-west shift remains speculative, but the Spurs' asset stockpile and projected future strength make them a top candidate in several mock trade packages. In the Eastern Conference, the Boston Celtics and New York Knicks surface frequently as logical fits. Celtics' interest is rooted in pairing Giannis with Jason Tatum, leveraging Boston's established contender status and substantial draft assets. For the Knicks, despite lacking deep draft capital or a cornerstone young player, pairing him with Jalen Brunson and potentially sending Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby in a deal remains alluring. That Eastern preference reflects an understanding of Giannis's familiarity with the conference and a strategic desire to remain in a potentially weaker side of the league. Other suggestions range from teams with cap flexibility or future draft capital, including the Atlanta Hawks, Houston Rockets, and Toronto Raptors, though much of this speculation remains theoretical rather than grounded in confirmed franchise moves. As diverse as the rumored destinations are, the consistent thread is that whichever franchise pursues Giannis will need to present strong championship potential and compensatory value for Milwaukee. Time pressure, trade deadlines' influence on decisions. The context behind Giannis Antetokounmpo's situation is heavily shaped by the NBA's impending trade deadline. Sources report that discussions between Giannis, his agent Alex Saratzis, and Milwaukee's front office aim to conclude before the February 5, 2026 deadline, emphasizing a limited window for resolution. These talks are not open-ended. They function within a time frame that pressures both sides to make decisions quickly.
Earlier today, Brian Windhorst was just on radio saying that Giannis has already requested a trade this summer. We got the reports at the beginning of the season that Giannis basically told the Bucks, like, hey, the only other team I want to play for at this point is the Knicks, and they had some negotiations, but ultimately the Knicks didn't have what the Bucks were looking for.
This ticking clock incentivizes urgency for multiple reasons. For Milwaukee, prolonging indecision risks, losing leverage as teams brace for last-minute bids. For Giannis, delaying until after the deadline limits his freedom if he wants to sign a new extension on his own terms. He is eligible to sign a 4-year, $275 million extension in October 2026, which could be done with a new team 6 months after a potential trade. That contractual detail adds another layer of strategic timing, as Giannis and his advisors must weigh where he can maximize both competitive opportunity and financial security. Trade deadline pressure also intensifies public and internal narratives. Teams monitoring the situation understand that major acquisitions around such a pivotal player often erupt into league-wide activity as deadlines approach. Competitive franchises might hesitate early in talks but pivot quickly as the deadline nears, creating a dynamic where interest peaks suddenly rather than steadily. Moreover, Giannis's recently strong individual numbers juxtaposed against the Bucks' disappointing record underscore why the deadline holds significance. The difference between staying in Milwaukee and pursuing a championship elsewhere may hinge on how the team performs in upcoming games leading directly into January. If the Bucks show improvement, Giannis might recommit. If not, the looming deadline could present the clearest moment to execute a trade. This convergence of performance, contract leverage, and fixed timing makes the trade deadline a critical inflection point in the narrative. League-wide impact: what his decision means for the NBA. Giannis Antetokounmpo's career decision has ramifications far beyond Milwaukee's roster. If traded, the franchise would face a structural reset after more than a decade of building around its franchise face. Since drafting him 15th overall in 2013, the Bucks have revolved their identity around Giannis, culminating in a 2021 championship and multiple deep playoff runs. However, 3 consecutive early exits reignite debate on whether the organization's blueprint remains viable. His departure could trigger a more sustained rebuild for the franchise.
So despite Giannis playing at an MVP level, the Bucks are not looking like a contender. And remember, over the summer, as just a reminder here, that's when there were reports that Giannis's relationship with the organization, it may be strained, and he wanted to reevaluate maybe around the quarter mark of the season.
Perhaps more significantly, Giannis's movement could shift the balance of power in the Eastern Conference. Should he land with an existing contender like the Celtics or a retooled Knicks roster, the East could see the formation of a new super team that would simultaneously pressure other Eastern contenders like the Heat or 76ers to recalibrate their own strategies. Conversely, a move to a Western contender like the Spurs or Mavericks would rejuvenate Western Conference competition, challenging traditional powerhouses and potentially redefining conference balance. In both conferences, the presence of Giannis influences free agency decisions, internal building philosophies, and salary cap maneuvering. Rival organizations could pivot their long-term strategies depending on which team acquires him, deciding whether to tank, trade, or pursue other star pairings. Ultimately, Giannis's decision doesn't only reshape team rosters, it reshapes narratives around competitiveness, player mobility, and how MVP-level talent networks shape the NBA landscape. The story around Giannis Antetokounmpo's career announcement is far from finished. The reactions, the rumors, and the behind-the-scenes conversations are only just beginning. What he revealed and what he didn't could reshape the Bucks' future and shift the balance of power across the entire NBA. If you want every update, every twist, every leak, and every reaction that comes next, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The next move in this saga could change everything.